DJ REM on rockaddictradio.com.
Right, Rock Addicts, this is DJ REM from Rock Addict Radio, and I have the guys from Only Zuul on the line. How you doing?
We're doing good, man. How are you?
Not too bad. Why don't you guys go ahead and start by introducing yourselves, if you don't mind?
All right, I'm Quentin.
I'm Blake.
I'm the singer. He's the guitar player.
Is there anybody else that's not with us today?
We got another guitar player, Chuck Hargis, and then our bass player, Jason Frost, and also our drummer, Devin Berliner. None of those guys are here today, but that's all good. I think we got it covered.
No problem. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to talk to me, because you said you guys kick ass, and I want to thank Gort from the Pain Factory before I forget for hooking me up with you guys. So that dude rocks. He sends me lots of good bands. So props to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
We like Gort.
Yeah.
Okay, so how long has Only Zuul been around?
Basically, I myself and our other guitar player, Chuck Hargis, had been in a couple of different bands with a few of the same members. Actually, the band that Chuck was in was called Contusion, and the band that I was in was called Temujin. And after a while, they both, on their own, first Contusion fell apart and Chuck wasn't doing anything, and then I was in Temujin playing local shows here in Portland for about 10, 11 months, and then I wanted to go a little bit heavier direction, and the other guys urged me to get together with Chuck, so we got each other on the horn, started writing riffs together and putting stuff together. A lot of the stuff that you even hear now, The Reckoning, Lysergic Jesus Side, 357 Rapture, which are a few of our older tunes now, we're really just started formulating in the first few sessions that just me and him did. So we put ads out, we got a hold of a drummer, started doing that thing, and then kind of went from there. So
Okay, very cool. And I have your EP from 2008, and then I also have your EP from 2012. Where did you guys record this music at?
Well, we recorded, what do you from 2012? What do you have from 2012?
Well, unless it's labeled wrong, it's Goat Mountain.
Goat Mountain, yeah, that's from 2009, I think, actually, originally. We're in the process of re-recording that EP right now. It's almost finished, actually. We just weren't happy with the way it came out. But there's going to be a 2013 Goat Mountain release also, but it's actually going to be packaged with a remastered version of our first EP as well, the self-titled, and packaged together and sold as one thing, just under the title In Dark Untamed. That will be the newest release to date, and then we have another one coming up after that. But the place we recorded our first EP, which was back in like 2007, I think, was with this guy Chris Finster at Giamana Studios. At the time, he'd done a lot higher quality recordings for extreme metal, for death metal, than a lot of other local dudes we'd heard. So we jumped on that pretty quick when he expressed an interest in recording us. So.
And that's local here in Portland, but he does a lot of guys all over the Northwest. I recall back in 2007 when we were working with him, he was working with a couple of bands out of Idaho and some California guys, and he ended up over in New York for a few years, so he kind of gets around really quality stuff. Again, his name is Chris Finster, does some great work, so that's where we did that recording. And then the Goat Mountain one, I took a leave from the band for a couple years to kind of get my shit together as far as stop drinking heavily. About 3.5 years sober now. But
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I was out for a while when these guys recorded the Goat Mountain EP. So everything that I know in regards to that is kind of secondhand. But so it's something that we still really liked the material, but didn't like the sound. We're trying to push this band into more of a technical, progressive death metal styling, and we're trying to really make sure that everything that we put out is the utmost top-notch to us first and foremost, rather than that kind of more garagey thing that I assume a lot of people attribute with the Northwest. It makes it difficult for us to find other local bands even to play with that are kind of the same lick as we are. So.
But as far as the record not coming out the way we wanted it to, didn't really have anything to do with the producer we worked with at the time. It was more that the guy who set up the recording session with that producer sort of did so of his own accord without really checking with anybody first, and we just kind of went with it because he already had time booked. And he's actually got a pretty good track record out here. He's recorded a lot of bands. I think he's even done some. I think he might have done some of the ceremonial casting stuff. I can't remember for sure. But he's worked with some of the bigger bands out here. But his style and his sound that he's used to working with is closer to like doom or black metal, more atmospheric, a lot more open, and a lot less staccato, I guess, than the music that we play. So it was more just a clash of styles than anything. And there's parts of that record, I think part of the reason some people really like the Goat Mountain recording is there's parts of it that are doomy and slow, just sound massive and really evil and really aggressive and really dark. And the general feel of the record is very raw and it's super fast and it's really in your face, but you lose a lot of the more technical, more left-hand heavy stuff in the hearing of it because it's too distorted at the end of the day. But at the same time, there's people who prefer that sound, and there's a lot of people who'd say that's their favorite only Zuul recording. So it's really just a matter of the
nobody in this room.
I guess. Nobody in this room.
Well, all I can say is, after listening to the current stuff, I definitely look forward to hearing the remastered and the redone stuff because I'll be very curious to see if there's the difference.
Yeah, there will be.
Very cool. So what's going on with you guys right now? You guys got like live shows and stuff going on? What's the scene like out there?
The scene is pretty great, and it's been pretty good to us local here. It's small. Portland is a big little city, kind of like the idea of Reno with less gambling. Not by much, but less.
Less gambling, more strippers.
Yeah, more strippers. The downtown area is small, but our kind of home base bar is downtown. It's called the Ash Street Saloon. We kick it there a lot. 3 out of 5 of us met there and worked there, including myself. I was a door guy there 8 years ago.
It was the first bar I went to when I moved to Portland back in 2006.
So we play there a lot, but as far as, the scene goes for metal, Portland, Oregon is right at the northwest tip of the state, just below Vancouver, Washington. And so just over the Columbia River from us is a whole nother scene that kind of conjoins. So we kind of, as far as the metal scene goes, there's a lot of bands that are from kind of all the corners here that people are in bands with together. Everybody kind of knows everybody. A lot of the bands, are able to carve their own niche because a lot of the dudes know each other and are in bands together and sleep with each other's girlfriends and all this sort of thing. So, so we, as far as that goes, we're able to play out a lot. There's a lot of little clubs that everybody knows. It's easy to just go up and kind of book yourself a show. The owners are accessible.
I mean, when you're starting off, they might want you to send them like a tape to show that you can play in time. But for the most part, the person you're booking the show with already knows one of the members of the band and has a pretty good idea of their talent or prowess. Word of mouth is huge out here.
Nice.
Especially there's so many places to play at any given night. I mean, I always make the joke you could play a different club here or a different venue every single day of the year, 365 days a year, if you really wanted to. It's just, there's so many venues, and so many of them do live music, and a lot of them every night of the week. But we've got a gig actually coming up.
The Black Circle Fest Northwest.
Yeah, it's the 9th of August is the day we're playing. It's a 4-day show. There's going to be all kinds of bands are playing that. Ghoul is going to be playing. Coven's going to be playing that show. Poison Ideas headlining the day we're playing.
It's the 5th annual year that a buddy of ours, Jake Super G, is putting it on. and he is in a local band called Ceremonial Castings that we played with often. Actually, our last gig was Jeff Hanneman Memorial, and that was cool. We played with Coven and Raptor.
I just saw last night playing with opening for Wehrmacht.
Yeah. So, as far as being an up-and-coming band, not signed, just local, but being able to get on bigger shows is really doable here in the Portland area because of that scene. We've played with Deicide, Jungle Rock, Goat Whore, Cattle Decapitation, big bands that we know and love. And
I mean, you definitely still got to put your time in, and we've been we've been at this for some time now, and it's only the pitfalls of being in a group. Being what they are, it's only now, in the last couple of years that it's really starting to gel as far as getting better shows, more frequently. We played with Goat Whore was a while ago, but that was like right before we ended up basically taking a two-year hiatus from playing shows because we just had so many internal issues with difference of opinion about artistic, music, whatever.
Oh, all the fun band stuff. Yep.
Oh, no.
It's a marriage.
So, here's a question for both of you. What got you guys into music? What kind of influences have you had in your life that made you want to do this?
Well, for me, both my parents are opera soloists, so I grew up actually on tour as a young child a lot, or on the road. I saw a lot of performances of the same operas over and over again, and I was sort of never ever been away from music. One of my earliest memories as a child is of the terror I used to experience and the discomfort when my father would burst into a room and hit a note, pretty big voice, and everything would reverberate. And when your ears are young and you can still hear shit good, like, that's pretty intense.
Right.
So, and then, throughout my life, I went to a lot of both my parents' shows, and it was when I heard Agrippina, which is a Handel opera, and it's the first time I heard a Baroque opera all the way through, and it's almost entirely in minor keys. And if it does break out into a major key, it's only to sink back into the, sorrowfulness of the minor again. And I told my father afterwards, I was like, this is a really cool opera. I mean, I watched a lot of opera, but I wasn't that into it. I was like, this is a really cool opera. Why is it so cool? He's like, I don't know why you like it so much more than other stuff. He's like, maybe you just like it because it's in minor keys. And something kind of clicked for me right then. And I had also just started listening to I just started getting into Alice Cooper and Sabbath and Ozzy and stuff. I was like 9 or 10, I think. And then pretty quickly after that, Pantera and Metallica and heavier stuff. And I feel like the combination of those things. We had moved to Germany that a couple years previous, and so the combination of being in a country that was really big into metal, especially at that time, 89 to 92, we got there about a month after the Berlin Wall came down. So there was a really interesting just vibe in the country anyway. And then just on top of that stuff, I don't know, the first time you hear that distorted guitar tone and it just clicks in your fucking being. Yeah, that was it. I mean, I think that's opera and just being around music and my environment was what pushed me in the direction that I went. Dark nature's great dream healed inside. Tedious respite.
Yeah, and I mean, it comes from, all sides. Me personally, I grew up in Florida, in Pensacola, and the first 10, 11 years of my life, and so that was a lot of hillbilly ragging influence, and driving around in the back of a red Camaro as a child. My mom pumping everything from, of course, Sabbath and Metallica to New Order, Gary Newman, and what's his name, Sledgehammer. I was just listening to it.
Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, Gabriel. So a lot of melody influence there, but it all changed for me when I was 6 years old, and I first saw. I was watching Headbangers Ball at 1 in the morning or whenever Rackman had the show. Um, I saw and I saw all the normal Guns N' Roses and all that. And it wasn't really heavy to me, Guns N' Roses and what they were calling metal. And I understood Metallica and stuff, but then I saw the video for Cowboys from Hell, and I saw the way that Dimebag was ripping that shit, and just how different that was, and how the guitar almost sounded like a computer with a chainsaw on it or something, and it scared me, but it excited me. I went, and I'll never forget this, and my mom will never let me forget it either. I went and I shook her and I woke her up. She thought somebody was in the house or something, because I'm like, Mom, wake up. And she's like, oh my God, what's going on, Blake? I said, I want to play electric guitar. I said, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? You woke me up for that? I'm like, yeah. So I got an electric guitar and kind of, I took it from there. Then it was, Sepultura, Slayer, of course, and then my family moved to Seattle, and then I kind of got a taste like Soundgarden and Alice in Chains, and it just went from there. And I was like the first kid in my middle school wearing Cannibal Corpse shirts, and the heavier the better, and it just never really laid off for me. So really adding a lot of the different influences of that, and then a lot of world music and a lot of I guess what you would call new age stuff. We really think it's important that melody and contrast come into heavy music now, with so many people either going hard one way, as far as power metal and stuff, trying to make it as melodic and synth laden as possible, or hard the other way, trying to make it as fast and technical as they can. It's like you're not really inventing anything new, so it just kind of comes natural to do what speaks to us, and pretty good union as far as what we're able to come up with and push. It's like we don't have to question what we know we want to do when it comes to actual writing.
We're all pretty different people, oddly enough, as we're from all over. I'm from New York originally, but I grew up in Germany, and then I was in boarding school in England for a long time. And Chuck's from Montana. Jason's originally from San Diego, and then he's lived here most of his life in Oregon. And then and Devin's
a local boy.
He's
here.
A local boy.
Yeah,
that's right.
And he's the newest member of the band. He's been in the band, well, I guess a year and a half now, but he is local here to the state of Oregon, so he's a Northwest kid. But we all love it here, and it's a big transplant area here in Portland.
Yeah, so we all, we're all from real different, just places in the world, but we had these little things in common. I mean, I remember when Blake and I met, one of the first things we realized was that our favorite Pantera album, which for some reason goes a little bit against the grain. I think it's just our age, but that Far Beyond Driven was our favorite Pantera record. And a lot of people, a lot of the older metal heads still will go for Vulgar or Cowboys. But I mean, for us, it was. I remember I said to him, I was like, honestly, I'd have to say, if you ask me what my favorite Pantera record is, I'd have to say Far Beyond Driven. And Blake just looked at me and says, yeah, well, where I come from, we call that the Bible.
So then I let him in the band.
Yeah. And my history from playing death metal sort of started when I was about 18, when I was in college. I had been fooling around with it before then, but that's when I actually joined a band that was solid for a little while. And my guitar player in that band had a huge impact on. I was really into extreme music, but growing up in Europe, I was a lot more black metal oriented. At the time, it was just really taken off there, and I had more. It made more sense to my ears, but Nate, my buddy Nate, was the one who really took me and started driving Deicide and Immolation and Cannibal Corpse into my head until it clicked. And Megadeth was the biggest influence on his guitar playing. He's a savage guitar player too, this guy Nate Zatkevich. And I'd listened to Megadeth, and I'd always never been as into it as I was into other thrash bands, even though the guitar playing was so rad. But he really turned me on to Dave and Megadeth, and that really opened up my world musically a lot too, as far as metal goes. And then Chuck is a huge Megadeth fan, a big Dave Mustaine fan, and it shows when the precision of his playing, especially in his right hand, is just surgical almost. But
methodical.
So then the combination of that, knowing that the one guitar player was a huge Dimebag fan and influenced by the same songs that I grew up like just driving my freaking family crazy with and anybody else around me. And then the other side, having, you know, a guy who understood how just influential and how massive, you know, Megadeth is and always has been. It's just like that really clicked. That clicked for me. And the bass player was more into the black metal stuff, and he and I also sort of met in the middle on some industrial music and shit that we dig on. So there was just a lot of musically, we have a lot of links between us, and there are definitely some areas where we clash, but for the most part, there's just a real synergy artistically that has kept us all in this band come hell or high water for the last 7 to 8 years.
I have to say two things. One, you got me at Megadeth because Megadeth is my favorite band of all time.
There you go.
Of all time. And I completely agree with your Pantera Far Beyond Driven album because my favorite Pantera song is Shedding Skin.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. They're all ass kickers.
Yeah, I mean, the album as a whole is just I think it just scares people. You know how many?
Yep,
because
exactly.
It's so dirgy, and like so many people I know, they hate some of the songs because of Phil's vocals, his lyrics are talking about, you know, I fucked your girlfriend, and they're like, oh, the first time I heard it, I was going through a rough breakup.
Yeah, good friends in a bottle,
you know,
Bill.
yeah, the song and the sounds that Dimebag made and stuff. It's like, you know that they were just loaded, but just ramming it hard too.
Right.
And you know, it just came off as scary. The album is intense, like as far as, you know,
especially at that time,
right?
When people, it was before the mass desensitization of our culture to evil, the concept of evil things or horrifying things or horror or whatever, you know.
And everybody heard it because they'd set it up with Cowboys from Hell and Vulgar Display, and everyone was stoked and couldn't wait for the new Pantera. And then it was just too much. Without being a Cannibal Corpse record and talking about eating fetus, it was the scariest thing that came out.
And it went straight to number one.
Yep, fuck yeah. Still.
Regardless.
All great stuff there, guys. So what I want to know next is, how did you guys come up with the name for the band? Where'd that come from?
That's what it was is Blake and Chuck and Jason, the bass player, Jason Frost, all used to work together at the Ash Street Saloon. Chuck and Jason, sometime, I don't know exactly when it was, if they were at work or having a beer or whatever.
And this was before the formation of the band.
Yeah. They were just bullshitting, and Chuck had said he always liked the name Zuul. He always wanted to use that as a band name or something. This is before Zuul FX. This is before that other band Zuul and all that stuff, you know, which is whatever. But Jason had turned to him at the time and said, well, if you were going to use Zuul, it would have to be only Zuul. And they both looked at each other and kind of smiled and laughed about it. And that was, you know, years and years ago. Fast forward to when we're starting to look at playing some shows and we still don't have a band name, and it's taken us 6 months at that point while we've been rehearsing to try to figure out what we wanted to call ourselves.
We had lists of like 300 names, like so bad. Like Machete Bloodbath was kind of a running thing, and we had like, you know, like
Spastic Gasp,
yeah,
Sonic Tomb, I don't know, Morbidly We Feast.
Was Air Conditioned Skull one of them?
Might have been,
yeah. Like,
General Horseball Grinder.
Yes.
Nice.
We love that, you know, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know, amputated mama genital or whatever.
But
like,
we couldn't we couldn't ever get all at the time was it four members?
It was four before Jason joined. Like,
yeah, at the time we could not get all four members.
Nobody was jazzed about it. So basically, like, when we were talking about it a little harder, our first show was an open mic at the Ash Street, and this was just Quentin and I, Chuck, our other guitar player, and our original drummer, Craig McIntyre, and we didn't have a bass player. And we had talked to Jason about coming in because me and Chuck were rapping, and we're like, well, we know the guy, we know he has bass gear because he had been in some local doom bands, and he came up with that name Only Zuul that we really want to use. So why don't we just ask him to join the band? So first off, we can just use the goddamn name, and then we'll have a bass player. And he came and checked it out. Our room was really crappy. He couldn't hear it very well. He wasn't super stoked. But then we played open mic at the Ash Street, like a Sunday night. There's like nobody there but the leftover bum drunks. And Jason had been working. He was the cook there, and he had been working through our little 20-minute set that we played. And as soon as we were done, he came right up. He was like, dude, I gotta play in this band. So we were able to use the name Only Zuul without having to, fight him for it. So that was nice. And it's just stuck, A lot of people don't know what it is. And then you say, you ever seen Ghostbusters? There is no Dana, only Zuul. Then they get it. But
which was part of the reason we didn't want to use it at first. Like, we brought the name up, and everyone was like, and Chuck brought up the conversation he had with Jason years before. And he said, Only Zuul, and we all did the same thing, just kind of looked at each other and giggled a little bit, snickered, and we're like, that's cool. But, we're like, that's really cool, but I don't think we want to be attached to, to the movie necessarily.
Right.
But as time went on, we realized it was the only name that we actually all liked.
We don't use any other aspects of Ghostbusters really lyrically or image-wise, so we've kind of just made it its own entity within our group. I mean, if you really look and do some research, as far as like ancient Sumerian lore and stuff, it's really pretty metal. I mean, Zuul pretty much means darkness.
Apparently Gozer, I also found out recently, is the Hebrew word for surgeon, which is pretty interesting. But for me, what I really dug about it was the reference to possession, and that because I was also a huge fan of The Exorcist growing up, and that the book and the movie had a very big impact on me as a person, like had an impact on on how I viewed aesthetics, and how it had a big impact on how I used language, and I also realized that it is insidious and has found its way into so many different parts of our subconscious and into our I mean, vulgar display of power. For example, there's a line in The Exorcist where the demon makes a drawer open and says, the priest closes it and says, do it again. Or he said, did you do that? And he said, do it again. And he said, that's much too vulgar display of power. So I know that's what it is. He wants him to remove his own straps. And he says, that's much too vulgar display of power. And it's also the voice, it's much too vulgar display of power, Gareth. And that there was so much pain and suffering that had gone into making that film, too. All those things really appealed to me, and just possession and the idea of possession. And also I've, looked into people who are believed to be possessed and are, obviously displaying signs of psychosis and stuff like that, and fake possessions and stuff like this, and exorcists and all that. I love that shit. I mean, it really interests the hell out of me. So the idea, that was something that was easy for me to grab onto right away with the name and be like, it automatically had a dark, ominous feeling to me, the idea of being inhabited by a foreign being, hosting a foreign entity, as it were. And I feel like that's kind of what I try to project in my vocal style. When why I don't stick to one voice, why I try to make it sound like there's a cacophony of voices, like the creature singing is inhabited by many demons, like Legion.
Well, very cool. Well, that's a great story for a band name, guys. So, where can people go to find out more about the band? What social networking and websites do you guys use?
Oh man, we got them all. Bandcamp, Facebook, Reverb Nation, MySpace, freaking Twitter.
Bandcamp.
Yeah, that's what Bandcamp. We got all. If you go on, you Google Only Zuul. At this point, our name should pop up before Ghostbusters does. So.
Yep, which is cool.
It's the top. You go Google Only Zuul, 5 things will pop up that you can click on.
We have a lot of live stream video stuff. We've been really blessed to kind of come in friendship with the local gal here, April.
Yeah, she works she's doing this thing for Sladen, Oregon, and Dream Evil Productions, which is kind of her thing. She's rad. She did a fan documentary about Manowar, and Manowar, I guess, found out and has invited her to go out to a show backstage VIP.
She has done a lot of free promotion and video recording at shows. I mean, when we played with Deicide, she was there, and Jungle Rock. Pretty much the past
Did you record the past 2 shows we played? And
a lot of stuff.
They came out great.
Yeah, so we've been fortunate to have a lot of video taken of us over the years.
And there will be some footage of those last two shows up pretty soon. We haven't.
Some older stuff.
They're still cool. There's a neat show that we played back when Blake was in the band the first time before he took his hiatus. We played in McMinnville, which is a much smaller town, and there's only really one bar to go to. So if you show there, everyone in the town's going to be there. Portland and also Seattle, Pacific Northwest, not big moshing towns, which is kind of a bummer for us. I mean, if Cannibal Corpse or Napalm Death rolls through, there'll be a sea of fists and elbows, but. If you're local, it's like people are always just kind of checking you out. More just everyone's a musician, so everyone's watching you. They're messing up or whatever, or if you're kicking ass. And sometimes you'll get a good response, but a big crazy mosh pit doesn't happen very often. But you go down to a spot like McMinnville where there's not much else going on, man, those kids go buck wild. So there's a pretty cool video of just dudes just punching insane, ripping shirts off, falling over, bloody, bashed heads. It's pretty amazing.
I'll definitely have to search that to check that out.
So yeah, there's stuff out there, and more to come.
Very good. Is there anything else you would like to tell everybody that's going to hear this interview? Anything I haven't asked you guys about you want to make sure people know about Only Zuul?
Check us out. I mean, if you're looking for a different kind of new heavy or whatever, I mean, we're a little bit different, but we, contrast is the way, and, just individuality. I can speak as far as the music goes, but just being a little more thoughtful and songwriting oriented rather than the cut and paste sort of thing.
It's not super proggy though. I don't want you to think that it's going to be like some sort of space rock on.
Well, don't take my word for it. Just listen to the shit.
Yeah, it's pretty. Italian is probably always at the forefront. I feel like we should mention that.
There will be blood.
There are some in our cleaner parts or melodic parts, whatever you want to call them. It still doesn't sacrifice the vibe.
It's not very haunting. It's scary.
Not,
it's creepy.
Yeah, it's pretty, but it's not for pretty's sake. It happens to be pretty, but it's still dark. It's always going to be dark. And, I feel like the brutality sort of, it goes throughout, but it's not, it's chill. It changes its shape, and it changes its face, and it evolves, and it's like a Satan from the Hebrew Bible, it's tricking you. It's making you. It's drawing you in, and then it's blasting your head off.
It's the adversary.
It's offering you its hand, and it's got a knife behind its back.
There's really we really people to check it out and really just kind of see for yourself.
Yeah, make your own opinion. We want to hear what you think too.
Absolutely, and one of the most prevalent pieces of info that I've picked up as performing with this band. Performed with other bands in the past myself as a guitar player is that almost every time without fail that we play a gig, somebody comes up to me that isn't necessarily your average metalhead in a Death t-shirt and cut off shorts and hasn't taken a bath in a week, but and not to say that they're not there and we love them too, but
we are them.
We are them. But that someone will come up to me at some point after we play a gig at a show and say something to me about maybe I'm not even really into metal. I don't go out to a lot of shows. This isn't really my thing. But I'll tell you what, I saw you guys tonight, and I love you. I could tell that you were passionate about what you do. About what you did tonight really just kind of shocked and awed me, and I'm going to check it out more and tell my friends about it. I'm talking about people that straight-laced 9-5ers are coming out for one reason or another, getting dragged by their boyfriend or coworker or just friend of a friend, loving it and spreading the word that it's different, and people know that just by being introduced to what we have to offer. We're a live band. When we play on stage, we make no choice but to pay attention, whether Quentin has to put his hand in the finger in the restroom, reach up through the damn toilet and pull you down, or that's while we're on stage. But the point is that we do things kind of our own way. But if we pour 110% into show, every single lick, every single melody, every crush, scream, guttural, gut blaster, retardo, face melting thing. So
and we love this shit. I mean, it's what we do. I had a guy come up to me at a show last year, and he told me he was not a white supremacist, but he said he was white pride. I'm half black. My mother's black, my father's white. He asked me how I felt about playing to a predominantly white crowd in a scene that has with white supremacy. And I told him, well, first of all, I grew up in Germany at a time. There's still a lot of racial tension there with the Turks, and being that there weren't a lot of internationals in Germany at the time, I'm no stranger to any of that kind of shit. But yeah,
bigotry,
But but he asked me that question. I said, well, I told him, I'm just, to me, I'm a metalhead first before anything else. From the first time I understood that music resonated within me the way it did, it has been more forming of who I am than my race or family or almost anything else, really. And I was in boarding school for a pretty good period of time. It was a father